Herzlich willkommen zum UnleashPeople Podcast, dem Podcast für alle, die HR und Talent Acquisition strategisch denken. Wir, Ina und Christian, liefern euch gemeinsam mit Expertinnen und Experten regelmäßig frische Insights, die euch und euer Unternehmen voranbringen. Heute sprechen wir mit Leandro Gomes da Silva, einem Pionier zu KI in Talent Acquisition, darüber, wie KI im Bewerbungsprozess eingesetzt werden kann. Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of the UnleashPeople Podcast. Today we have Leandro as guest, and I don't want to kind of oversell him, but he actually is very knowledgeable when it comes to AI in general, but also AI in recruiting. And that also basically sets the tone for today's conversation. Once again, we will speak about AI because apparently we will not be able to get rid of that topic anytime soon. And to start the conversation, I have a very easy question to you, Leandro, because yesterday you kind of tagged me on a LinkedIn post where it was said that a person kind of applied to 740 plus jobs with an, let's call it AI agent that actually created the CV for each role kind of perfectly. And I have a very easy question to Leandro. Is that good or bad?
Oh, it's terrible. I mean, again, let's take, depends on the perspective of whom I'm answering. As a former recruiter, that's horrible. That's terrible, because that means, and this started, so I stopped recruiting about a year and a half ago, and already then you saw a massive increase in profiles and applications and people that I would jump on a call for a pre-screen. They had no idea who I was. They had no idea what the role was. They had no idea who the company was, because they mass applied, right? From a job applicant perspective, I understand that they feel the need to use these tools because they don't hear from us. We ghost them, and all of the symptoms that we have. So I think, again, it's a matter of perspective.
Yeah. Yes, it is. And it still kind of leaves the recruiting world in a situation where we have to, I don't know how, screen so many more CVs than we did before, which, if you take a look at it, also increases the probability of being ghosted as a candidate, because it becomes so much that it becomes more likely to kind of overlook a candidate or just forget to hit the reject button if you don't want to automate that completely. Or the next urban myth, if we outsource everything to that AI that is doing everything for us, and we just sit there and do nothing, which again is also something that I see very often in today's discussions, let's phrase it like that, that somebody tells applicants, you need to have an AI optimized CV, because no human being will see your CV anyway, so it needs to be suitable for any AI tool, right? Which I find super annoying, because I don't know which tools those folks envision we are having. Most normal, let's call it normal, mid-sized German companies are happy if they have an ATS that was state of the art in the 1990s, and that is so far. Yeah, that's an exaggeration, right? But you know what I mean. So that's the situation we're in right now, and it gets more and more confusing, and then people complain, and everybody is annoyed by the other one, right? So what's your take on that?
There's a lot to unpack there, right? What I like to do is I like to go back to first principle thinking. and really strip down the problem. So if I strip down the problem and look at the CV, are you guys familiar with the history of the CV?
Yep.
So the very first CV was actually written by Leonardo da Vinci to apply for a place in a municipality thing somewhere. I don't know the exact story anymore, but it was actually by Leonardo da Vinci that wrote on paper a summary of his experience and skills to convince someone to give him a certain position. That's where it started. So that means that that format of convincing people to work together with you has been around since, what is it, 1600 something? It's insane that we're still using that, right? A CV is a self-reported tool. When I was a recruiter, I quickly realized already when I was quite junior that you cannot necessarily trust a CV, right? Because if people like to add these bars of, for example, language, I'm very good at certain language, or with technologies, I'm very good at certain technology. Says who? What is the standard, right? Again, back to perspective. So I'm not necessarily a fan of a CV because A, it's self-reported, and B, it is a required skill to write a CV. Why? Because you don't know who's going to read it. And the person that is reading it, let's still look at the standard version, right? People reading it, they have different preferences in looking at a CV. I might have a very different preference for CV build out than you guys have, right? So that makes it actually nearly an impossible task to build a good CV. So I would say, let's get rid of the CV altogether, right? That's maybe another podcast. In the world that we are living in, we still have to deal with it. And I think that myth that you referenced of AIs reading the CV is partially true now, depending on where you are in the world, right? And what kind of regulations you're dealing with. But that myth started long time ago. So before AI, it was the ATS can read your CV, which was total nonsense. In 2013, Amazon tried to do this. They failed miserably due to a lot of bias in that system, etc. Stopped doing that as well. We learned from that. For a long period of time, we decided, hey, it's just not safe enough, not reliable enough, etc., etc. Now we have new technology, which could enable us to do that. I'm more on the positive side of thinking that this technology can help us than just being scared and looking only at the legal obligations. What is the difficulty, though, is people need to realize the basis of how technology works. And AI is sort of the tip of the iceberg. But when someone applies to a company, that CV usually goes into an ATS. We can agree on that, right? I have actually been testing ATS systems recently for my day job at Noble, and I ran a thing that I called a parser test. So all these vendors, they claim that they can read a CV 100%. That's not true. So why is that not true? Because there is a technology that is not AI. It's just very simple. You call that parsing technology. So basically, you have a CV, it reads that CV, extracts the information, and puts it in the right fields within the ATS. Once a CV is more than one column, it becomes difficult. 2 columns is still doable. So that means 2 columns on your, let's say, A4 CV. People that have a creative CV that want to like bring out their creativity, that's not going to pass the system. So that's where the problem begins. And we need to realize it and understand that when people upload it in this way, and this was my realization moment on, hey, why are there very big enterprises that are asking me to upload a CV plus fill in all these fields? Why do they do that? I understood now why they do it, because they know the technology can be trusted. Can we find better user experience ways? We probably can. But so that's where it starts. So if we cannot properly extract the information in the CV and put it in the right bucket, so we as recruiters can find the people within our ATS systems, forget about AI. Because if we can find the AI, won't be able to do that either. So I think my best tip is keep it simple. Keep it either 1 column, max 2 columns, because that already helps you not only for the person reading the CV to be very easy to scan, but also that it actually is ingested in a proper way by the ATS. Does that make sense?
You're
Did I go
also
too deep?
completely makes sense, right? And I actually learned something very new because I didn't know that Leonardo da Vinci was the first person we can blame for having a CV right now. Maybe that would kind of lower his reputation if everybody knew that he is the inventor of the CV as well.
I think it kind of worked back
sorry
in the
about
day.
that.
I mean, it was relevant for a long time. Only now I think we can do better. What is the biggest hurdle here is that we all agree on how good looks like. And as recruiters, we know how difficult that is, right? Because it's even difficult to align a hiring team. If you have a hiring manager with 3 interviewers and you do that kickoff and you ask them, how does good look like? You're going to get 4 different answers. So imagine trying to align the world on a standard is nearly impossible.
But you're also speaking about a slightly different topic, and we had that in one of our previous conversations as well. So you're saying that the CV is being parsed by whatever tool to fill in specific whatever fields for searchability, right? That might be the case, but out of my experience, when I do CV screening, I don't take a look at the fields that I have in the CV. If they're parsed at all, I always take a look at the CV. And that's my point of reference, right? I go through the CV and see what's written in there. And well, to be very honest, I am not a fan of super fancy CVs that look different because I don't find things and I don't want to look for things for an extended period of time. So everything should be somewhere where it usually is, so that I don't have to kind of go up and down and find language skills, coding skills whatsoever, right?
But I agree with you there. And maybe to clarify. So just to clarify, right? That is the first step for you. Yes, we as humans to verify CV, yes, it's way more nice to just see the A4 as intended. But I am also thinking one step ahead. That is, if 99.9% of people will not get hired for that position, right? We can only hire one. However, I think as good recruiters, we should treat our CRM as the goldmine that it is and be able to source from that, because they are people that have shown interest in our company. And if that is done correctly, then, for example, systems, AIs, all of that can help us find the right person for the next job that might come up. So that's where it was coming from, just to highlight that.
But then the question from my side would be, going back to the starting point with the person who did send, like, what was it, 700 CVs? Mm-hmm. First question, did the person get a job? No. But I think
they did, I believe.
I think what's interesting, Christian, also when you say you look at CVs, meanwhile, I'm losing trust a little bit. That's what I feel when I screen CVs. So I stopped reading any letters, emails, whatsoever. I just purely look at the CV. In the tool that I'm using, I disabled the AI matching because for this tool, it just didn't work at all. And I felt it's misleading the hiring managers, because then they see that AI match. And when you actually look at the CV, there was the right buzzword, but in an internship. So no, it's not a senior project manager. And now I start to okay, now the CV is also done by AI. So how do I do my pre-screening in a proper way? Is it what do I look for? What am I looking for to invite people to the first talk? Because I can also not invite 100 applicants that come in the first week to get to know call.
Yeah. So I think also there it's important to make a distinction between what kind of roles, what kind of seniority are we talking about, right? Let's assume. Can you share give me one. Where did that happen? You're looking senior project manager, right?
I was looking for a senior project manager more in the environmental sector, so Article 6. And I got more than 100 applications in a week. Then, because I'm alone in this company, I had to
Mhm.
post the position, so I have the chance to read through it, because recruiting is like this part of the job.
Yep.
And it's a small company, and then I was like, okay, so I see the CVs are like so pimped and look so great, and either I have a ton of great people, and there were a ton of great people, by the way, but there were also some that I had in the get to know call where I was like, after 2 minutes, it was pretty clear that CV in person is not necessarily a good match.
Check. So there's two ways I would tackle this personally, right? The old school way would be what we like to call the knockout questions, which is when the applicant applies, there's a few questions there. If you formulate it start and you give them a little bit of space to write about it, it gives you some insights, right? Can they use AI with that? Yes. What are you forcing them to do, though, is to think about a specific situation that's unique to them and that actually happened in real life and that they can, quote unquote, prove during that first interview round, right? Mm-hmm. When we're talking about massive applications and they have AI on their side, I'm not a fan of using AI to interview, but I think for certain high volume roles, I might consider that. And why is that? Because again, you're low on resources, you don't have the time, everyone's already using AI on the other side. So as long as we have the CVs, we need to check the skills somehow. And I think the most reliable way is to ask the right questions, to ask start questions, to ask about, hey, I see you work at this company. You mentioned you ran this project. So tell me about a time when you blah, 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 blah. Getting those answers back and verifying those answers will tell you much more than the CV can. And again, can they use AI? Yes, they can, but to a certain extent, because you can I feel quite easily understand when it's an AI answer, when it's a real human answer. So that's something with high volume I would personally consider to do.
When I hear this, the conversation, and it's not the first time we speak about that, and it won't be the last time we will speak about that, I actually wonder why people enhance their CV. Because people will figure out, right, that they're not as good as they're saying. And they will then fail. Sorry to say that, but they will fail at a later stage. Most likely the one after sending the CV, right? Because a good get-to-know call will kind of be able to filter out those persons who have exaggerated their skills massively. So why are you doing it? Because you're bound to fail anyway. You are just creating more work for the companies, and you're also wasting your own time, because you actually know I go into an interview, and if I'm asked a question about the topic I said I'm super good at and I'm not, I will fail. And then
yes,
it's a waste of time for everybody. Yes, you can use AI for that as well. You can have your prompter running and reading off the answers off your screen, but still, it's easier to figure out in a conversation that you're kind of using AI than on a CV. But in the end, you gain nothing. But why do we do that as human beings?
I mean, I think it's from a place of more desperation as well, right? Imagine you're looking for a job for a few months, you have a family to maintain, you're gonna take any means that you can in order to secure a job. Do I think it's correct to be, let's say, because quote unquote, you're saying that they're lying, right? Because it's then exaggerating to the point where it's not true, and you're, let's say, I'm a 5-star at something while I'm actually a 2-star. That's not going to serve anyone. However, what I do think we could educate people on and give that feedback as well, because I think partially that's our responsibility as recruiters too, right? Is when we see this, give them that feedback like, hey, your CV and the conversation didn't match our expectation. These are the reasons why. This is my tip for you in the future in order to do this and that, right? I started doing this already back in the day, giving that feedback. I also asked the interviewers, hey, are there any books, website, podcasts, whatever that this person can follow to scale them up? So if they apply next year again, they could have a realistic chance of doing it, right? I think that responsibility is also on us, and it's a little bit of candidate experience. On their side, let's say the applicant side, it's writing a CV is not a science necessarily, it's more of an art. But what you can do with AI is say, hey, interview me. Here's my CV now. Interview me to create a better version for this CV that matches whatever job description you're or whatever job you're applying for, without exaggerating. But my goal is to explain or show my qualities in a better way than I currently am, right? I prompt something like that.
Yeah.
I'm making this off the top of my head, but something like that. It's about communication, and not everyone has 5-star communication. And AI can really help you to deliver the message better within, of course, the reality of the things that you do.
And I think it's also something to look at both sides. So I fully understand that being desperate. And we had said before, AI, I think, Christian,
Okay.
I told you, maybe I also said in another podcast, I had a person, like we did during COVID, everything remote, the whole interview process. And then the person who made a great process showed up at work in the office first day, and it was a different person. And so my local HR manager called me and was like, I remember the Zoom call. I remember the CV picture. It's a different person.
Wow.
So it happened before. Maybe now the scale changes a little bit because it's easier. And then I think also a lot of people think it's not necessarily lying. It's more like, hey, once I'm in, I will manage. Because on the other side, when you look at some job postings, and also when I think about meetings I have with the hiring managers where they are looking for the purple squirrel, and then the job posting looks like you must have 20 years of experience and this and this and this and this, and salary range, they have 50K maybe. So then it's also for me as a candidate, okay, the posting sounds like they're looking for a VP, but at the end, it won't be so hard. So I think that's the expectation management. Both sides are exaggerating.
100% agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
So back
100%.
to Christian's favorite topic, the kick-off call and working with the hiring manager to set the right expectations.
Oh, I love that. It's one of my favorite things to tackle, to be very honest. Like I think there's, but again, maybe there's a different podcast. But also there, I have built internally for Noble. I built basically, let's say, an intelligence layer, an AI intelligence layer that is tied into our note takers, that is tied into our CRM. For example, already on the business development side, it starts doing research on the company, looking at company Glassdoor, looking at company funding rounds, etc. Everything we would normally look at before engaging with that company. And we're leveraging all the intelligence we get from the first moment we speak with a potential client, with becoming a client, to having that kickoff call, that when we arrive at that kickoff call, the recruiter is much better prepared. We have stuff like LinkedIn Insights. So we know already, hey, you're looking, because out of that BD conversation comes quite a lot of information. You can research to see how feasible is your search. So that's what we leverage. So we bring that into the conversation call and be like, hey, this call is meant for us to align based on the information. This is what we know so far, and this is what is real in the sense of, given your current profile, given this data, we think we could or could not hire this person within X amount of time. And then the conversation starts, right? Instead of just listening and basically they say jump and we say how high. That is a big recruitment problem. We're too service oriented. We need to think like consultants, basically, in that sense, right? To inform the stakeholder, give them the information to make the right call, because they will not have that. They're looking at us. We're the specialists.
That brings me close to the next rant, and I don't want to do that. But again, apparently, all parts of the company actually use data, do proper research and stuff. And then when it comes to HR and recruiting, we just do it on gut feeling. And the role we have been recruiting for, we recruited for that role 6 years ago. So let's use the same job description. No need to talk because everybody knows what we're looking for, right? So probably we should also improve our internal processes and actually really create a proper internal job description. So whom are we looking for? What problem does the person have to solve? Yada, yada, yada. And then translate this into a job ad and into our outreach, because then the role is much clearer, and actually people don't need to invent generic CVs, but they know that's what this company is looking for. That will be my goals in the first 6 to 12 months. I need to achieve this and that. And then if they are kind of sure they are not able to develop a complete microservices architecture from scratch, they will not put it into their CV because that will be the stuff I will test them against, right? So it doesn't make sense to kind of, I don't know the word right now, to create a specific CV for that, or to be a bit creative when it comes to your own skills. So maybe that is also a very good step to kind of reduce those, let's call it CV forging things, because it doesn't make sense, as the role is so clear that you will it will be found out that it doesn't fit, or that you don't fit to the role. So kind of pointing fingers doesn't make sense in any way, right? Because in the end, we are all trying to do the same thing. Like, the candidates want to earn money. I guess that's the basic thing that we have to acknowledge. People don't need to be in love with your company. They don't need to pretend to be in love with your company, because they just want to earn money in the first place.
It's not completely true, though. I would challenge it. It's top 3. I agree, it's top 3. It's not necessarily always number 1, and it depends on the type of role that we're talking about and seniority.
I'm not saying they want to earn top money, but you need to be paid for what you're doing, right?
Yes, agreed.
So doing 100%. Things for free is not an option, because you said it, Leandro, you have to pay your bills, and you need to pay your bills. So that is basically the trade-off you do. And if the job is fun, and if it kind of is aligned with your values and your purposes, then it's even better, right? But that needs to be there, and then we can also figure out a way of doing things.
I think where it starts is, and it might not be the most political thing for me to say here, but it starts with the talent acquisition leaders, right? It starts with the HR leaders. I'm capable of right now building systems that can help our recruiters do this, because there was headcount for someone in operations that can think this through, right? That has the time to think through things, to look at current processes, to be critical of that, to talk to people, understand stakeholders, etc., etc., etc. It is not billable hours all the way, right? It's not something that we can measure straight away. I think I'm now, 7-8 months deep into my current role. The first 3 months, we're really onboarding. We're really understanding the company culture, processes, aligning people, and hey, what does this even definition mean? We're all using a certain definition, but once I started challenging them on that, what that definition meant, we found out, hey, it means slightly different things to the people that matter. And that's where it starts. You need to create that headcount. You need to have someone that understands that first principle thinking, and you need to clarify how does good look like, because also for your job description, right? Also there, what is good? What can be a good job description for me might not be the same for you. But you have to have that logic internally. And if you have the logic internally, like, this is what it always needs. I built that for Noble. And what my system does is based on the transcriptions, it will flag, hey, I'm missing all of this information to create a really good transcript. So talk me through all of these points. Do you know that? Is it unknown? Do you need to go back to the client to ask it? And only then will I be able to create a good job description for you. So that is something that, again, is possible with AI, but you need someone that has the time and the capacity to do it.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, right, because we could speak so much more. And we actually haven't really touched the AI piece.
Yes, let's go AI. Let's do it.
We don't have that much time left, right? That's the thing, and I don't want to fill another 30 minutes. So probably, unless you have some specific questions, Ina, I would actually kind of really want to end here, because now we covered a lot of things when it comes to CVs, when it comes to the use, let's say the use of AI at the top of funnel and the good sides, and also let's say the bad sides. And in the end, AI should be used and can be used on both sides, but in a way that it kind of makes yourself shine. Let's phrase it like that, and still being correct on what you actually can do. I'm completely in line with that, right? And AI can do that very, very well. It can help you rephrase things. It can help you really come to the point, which I can't when I'm speaking. Short side note, maybe I should use AI as a trainer for my conversation. No, but that's stuff you can do. What AI is not able to do, and you mentioned that at the very beginning, Leandro, it is actually not able to really understand your CV and then take a decision. Like, we didn't speak about the legal part, that this is actually not allowed in the European Union. So as a let's say final statement, Leandro, what would your final statement on that topic be for today?
So for me, AI, a lot of people see it as raising the bar, which is true. However, there's another side that I feel we don't talk about enough, which is it also raises the floor. So there's multiple studies that show that if you take a group of people, let's say in this case recruiters, you give one team no AI, the other team you give AI that is, let's say, properly managed, right? You will see that if you split it down the middle into the 50 worst performers, 50 best performers, the best performers will increase. But the biggest increase in productivity, efficiency, and quality will come actually from the bottom 50, right? And that has several different reasons. But that's where the biggest efficiency gains are short term, is raising the average quality of whatever you're doing. And that is something I really want people to keep in mind when talking about recruitment teams. It's not only for your high performers, it's for everyone, and your whole team benefits. But think it through, define it well, use it mostly for what is repeatable, and also use it as a sparring partner. But the human in the loop is critical, always responsible for whatever the AI outcome is.
That's a very, very good last sentence. And maybe we find another time to speak about actual use cases, because I know you have some really good use cases, so that people understand what can be done. But for today, everybody, thank you very much for taking the time to have this amazing conversation. I hope everybody learned something. I did. And thank you very much, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Das war's für heute. Vielen Dank, dass ihr bis zum Ende dabei geblieben seid und bis zum nächsten Mal.